There was a not a a naturalized U.S. citizen in Connecticut recently. He spoke before a board discussing the matter of pulling guns, and I want to play a clip from him, if I could. His name's Henson Ong.
Henson Ong. Forgive me, English is
Ong.
not my first language. I am a legal immigrant, and I am an American by choice. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my opinion and give my testimony in opposition to the majority of the proposed bills which do nothing to deter future crimes. Gun control does not work. Your own history is replete with high school rifle teams, Boy Scout, marksmanship merit badges. You could buy rifles at the hardware stores. You could order them, mail order, delivered to your home.
Okay, so first off, Mr. Ong is raising a point right there that the history of our country is built on our right to own firearms.
Yeah,
you know, and then he's going to get into a second here. I want to cue it up just right because I had messed that up. Oh, okay, there we go. We were awash with firearms, right? And so then he poses the question here, what changed? Why is it so now suddenly we're so violent and we have to pull these guns? Because we didn't have mass shootings throughout our history, you know? So here what he has to...
available firearms and ammunition.
Sucks with the
and
mic
yet
on
in
and
your
off.
past you did not have mass school shootings. Other people have already expressed the question, what changed? It was not that the availability of guns suddenly exploded or increased. It actually was decreased. What was changed was societal decay.
What do you guys think about that?
Well, like, I mean, society's degenerating for the most part, and we're not where we were like 30 years ago, 40.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like more or less the golden age was like the Noir era. Like, I mean, sure there was still violence, there was crime and stuff. Like, but
so that's the effect. What is the cause? It's easy to just put the lump term. Clint, what do you think? It's to say social decay is easy, but what is causing the social decay?
Gee. Is it safe to say that maybe some aspects of social media?
I think it's extremely safe to say. It's not only safe, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Like, and I wouldn't go as far to say, like, I would go as far to say, like, the parents do have a problem, like, do have a big part in it, because, like, you see that more and more, like, kids are rebelling, like, their parents aren't involved or anything, because, like, what percentage of children come from broken homes and stuff like that?
50 years ago, there was guaranteed a parent at home with the kid all the time.
Yeah.
And now both parents have to work to pay to pay the bills to get food on the table. So the kid's left to be raised by television and their peers.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's a whole lot of his parenting. Like, my dad made enough money that where my mom was at home and I was homeschooled, and, you know, like, I mean, I didn't turn out to be a criminal or anything like that. I had a really good house life and stuff, and I feel like, there's a big chunk of, like, people in America that didn't have that when they're growing up, and that's where it happens now. Because if you look at it, like, a lot of people have psychological problems that do the shootings. Like, I know James
Holmes.
Yeah, Holmes. Yeah. Like, he had psychological problems.
We'll get into the mental health part of it here in a minute, because that's a whole nother
for
stuff.
sure.
All right. Then he gets a little applause here because people agree with what the man's saying, right?
Gun control actually did work. Washington, D.C. and Chicago would be the safest cities in your nation, but it is not. They have the toughest gun laws and the highest crime and murder rates.
Amen. This guy makes so many good points. That's why I wanted to play it and pause it, play it and pause it, and point them out. You know, New York City and Washington, D.C. and Chicago are supposed to be gun-free for the most part, unless you jump through all sorts of hoops. And look, criminals have guns everywhere.
Yeah.
They're not going to obey the laws.
When London and Australia both banned guns, the violent crime rate rose 40 and 44% in each respective nation. So, like, I mean, it just goes to show that when you control guns, it never works the way that you want to.
Just look at Mexico. They're not legally allowed to have guns, but yet the drug war is still going on, and that's huge down there.
Yeah.
all the firearms down there.
If criminals want guns, they will get guns. It doesn't matter like what sort of like if they have to jump through legal loopholes or anything. Like that's irrelevant. People are going to get their hands on guns.
The thing is that criminals already have the guns.
Yeah.
And they're not going to turn them in.
So
if you suddenly ban guns, the only people that will turn them in are the law-abiding people who wouldn't go out on shooting sprees anyway.
Yeah.
So the only people who will be left with guns are government, who now have more power over you. They have violence in their side, because how could you match their violence unarmed? And then the criminals, who never would have turned them in the first place.
And that's the point I'd like to make. Why are we not allowed, but the government is allowed?
The mass shooters...
Because they don't trust us. They're scared of us now.
And the criminals have guns. Isn't that kind of funny? The government, criminals. Kind of funny, right?
You could just say that the criminals have guns, and you've said it all.
Yeah, pretty
all
much.
right, let's continue on with Mr. Ong, what he has to say here.
Now, some people have asked and called the AR-15. They called the AR-15 a weapon of mass killing. Well, it turns out that there are a few government agencies which disagree with that characterization. The Department of Homeland Security has stated that a rifle chambered in 5.56 NATO with a 30-round magazine is suitable for personal defensive use.
All right, let's just stop it right there for a second. Right at the time where they're saying that assault rifles do not belong on the streets of America, they belong in war zones, our government is ordering assault rifles for the streets of America for their troops. They're secret stormtroopers, man.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. They're saying, you can't be trusted with it, but we're going to have one at your airport, and if we tell you to freeze, you freeze.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The heightened police state in this country, it's out of hand.
I think he's going to get into also the hunting element, like supposedly the Second Amendment is just about protecting our hunting rights.
I have documentation on that. It is HSCEMS-1212-00011, solicitation for
like
Immigration and
I
Customs
feel like I'm
Enforcement
never gonna,
Agency.
like I don't feel like you'd ever go on and shoot somebody.
Now,
My friend was
who needs an AR-15
like
with 30-round mags? That question has also been brought up.
You know,
And
he's
I
never gonna go
would like
shoot somebody.
to put forward that had the Koreans in the LA riots not had AR-15s and AK
This is crucial right here.
and Ruger 30s, their businesses would have been burned to the ground like all of the other businesses in their neighborhoods. Theirs stood because they stood their ground.
All right, right there he's getting into, if the Koreans, the Chinese in Tiananmen Square, the business owners in the LA riots, even the Jews in Nazi Germany had been allowed to keep their weapons, maybe they could have protected themselves from genocide and Holocaust, and in the case of the LA riots, obviously just like looting and violence and damage, destruction.
Yeah, like I mean, it just goes to show like over the course of history, like the less you're allowed to have your own way, your own means of protecting yourself, the more and more apt you are to be getting hurt by something. Like the Tiananmen Square riot, like that's one of the most disheartening things in history, because you watch all these brilliant students get slaughtered because they had no means to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And they were just trying to stand up for democracy, and what happens.
Yeah. And it's history repeating itself. Every time in history that a government has tried to disarm the public, it has been not tried. Every time that the government has disarmed the public, it has been followed with sweeping reform, like dictatorial, just control, complete the dissolution of freedom and liberty. It's ridiculous, man. And then people are just going here. They're almost begging for it. They almost say, "Please, Uncle Sam, please come in and make us defenseless. Please come in and take our right to protect our own lives."
And
I don't get it.
We need to remember what the Second Amendment was.
Absolutely.
For
This is
in the first place.
This is why I have a big problem with one of Obama's executive actions, stating that all previously owned guns are going to have to be registered. They're going to have a list of every single person that owns a firearm, and that's the first step to confiscating them.
It was the first step that not to bring up the
History
Nazis
repeats
again, but it's the
itself.
exact same thing that the Nazis did. First off, gun crime's a problem. We're going to have to register the guns, and then if we know where all the guns are, then we can prevent the gun crime. And then once they have the list, oh, well, we did that, but it didn't quite work. So now, if you just keep all of your guns with us, we'll hang on to them for you, and then we'll know that we'll be able to keep all the gun crime down, right? And it's like, oh, well, no, that didn't quite work. So now you can never have them back. We're just going to keep them for good, you know? And it's just this daisy chain.
The Second Amendment was made to protect us from government that would become too powerful.
And then you hear these anti-gun people up there saying, nobody's talking about taking all of your guns. No, we're just talking about assault rifles. Be sensible. And they try to make it like if you disagree with them, you're an idiot or you're insane or whatever. But if you look at Obama and Feinstein, there are speeches out there. There's historical record of them saying if they could take every gun, they would. So this to them is just a start. It's not this. Once they take assault rifles, they're done. Are you kidding me?
They're doing it slow so that people don't wake up.
They want to take everything. All right, let's see what else he has to say.
I would also put forward the conjecture that had the 10,000 students at Tiananmen Square not been unarmed, things may not have
Square. And the people just disappeared
so
after.
many of them disappeared.
You know, because they couldn't defend themselves.
In your own laws, United States versus Miller, 309, U.S. 174, 1939, it was made clear that the type of firearms protected by the Second Amendment were those specifically useful and common for military use in defense of the state. I would like to note that the state is not the government. The state is the people.
Amen, Mr.
like
Ong.
that.
The state is not the government. The state is the people. We are the government.
Right.
When in 1939, well, it was been 1941 when Pearl Harbor was bombed. The Japanese emperor or whatever stated that he wouldn't invade the United States because he'd be walking into where everybody could kill them because they were all armed.
They would say the direct quote was there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass, and that's the first thing that I think of every time I hear some idiot say, "Why do you need an assault rifle in America? Give me one good reason why you need an assault rifle in this country as a deterrent from invasion." Period. There's one good reason. Now, could you kindly shut up about it and quit trying to step on my rights?
Yeah. There's no reason to take away like self-defense weapons because I mean they're not automatic. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, run in there and just blaze up a bunch of kids? Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, most sensible people don't go killing other people. Like, the kinds of people that do that are criminals and people that have severe mental health problems.
Absolutely. You know, the whole thing about all of these people having to register and have it registered like even previous guns they've already owned is crazy. What they need to do is make it more difficult for mental health cases. And again, this is a whole other subject that we could get into probably next week. I'd love to get into the mental health aspect of the country. But these like Zoloft and these mind-altering drugs are making mass shooters and they're making suicidal people. You know, they're not helping the problem. They're aggravating the problem.
Ban the drugs, not the guns.
Yeah, amen. Amen. And then, you know what, if you still have if you're still crazy, then put you in a home. Protect everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you deserve your freedom until you don't deserve it anymore. And if you're going to be a risk to other people's freedom and life and liberty and happiness, then you deserve to be off the streets. All right, Mr. Eng?
In Lewis.
That's right. Give him a round of applause.
In Lewis versus United States, 1980, it is stated that the Second Amendment guarantees no right to keep and bear a firearm that does not have some reasonable relationship to the preservation and efficiency of a well-regulated militia. It has nothing to do with hunting.
That is another big argument. People always say, you don't need an assault rifle to go hunting. You can have a bolt-action rifle. Who's talking about hunting?
This isn't about hunting.
It has nothing to do with
Hunters
hunting.
want to make it about hunting, but it's about protecting ourselves.
Only pea-sized brains could really just accept, it's about hunting. You don't need an AK-47 to go hunting. You're right. But what if I do need an AK-47 to shoot a bunch of rounds into a target in my backyard, on my property? Not my backyard, literally. I don't have an AK-47. But if I had one and I had a gun range, right? Then, yeah. I have within my rights to fire this weapon.
You have the
right. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eng. Oh.
Mr. Eng.
Wrong thing there. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
The militia, as per the debates in the
We gotta
convention,
fight
shows plainly
for
enough
our right
that it
to
is composed of
cause.
government physically capable of acting in consequence. And further, that ordinarily, when called for
There's a minute
service,
left
these
for this
men
guy.
were expected to appear, bearing arms supplied
Where are
by
they from?
themselves, and of a kind
Connecticut.
in colonies at the time.
Originally, I think Vietnam.
The AR-15 is the most common and popular rifle in America at this time.
Would you please wrap up?
I will wrap.
That offends me.
Yeah, what the heck?
He's only 4 minutes into speaking. Ding! Please wrap up, sir. Please, you're
Wrap
speaking
it
out
up.
about something that's more important than anything I
Have
could
some
possibly
freaking
ever think of.
respect.
And please wrap it up.
Like,
Have some respect.
From Judge Andrew Kozinski in Silveria vs.
This quote's
Lockheed,
great right here.
2003. My excellent colleagues have forgotten these bitter lessons of history. The prospect of tyranny may not grab the headlines the way vivid stories of gun crime usually do. But few saw the Third Reich coming until it was too late. The Second Amendment is a doomsday provision, one designed only for those exceptionally rare circumstances when all other rights have failed. A free people can only afford to make this mistake once.
Thank you.
So there you have it. A free people can only afford to make that mistake once. That really should get across the gravity of the situation. You know, that if it's allowed to happen, we're in deep trouble.
no, yeah. Like, I mean, it's just proven throughout history, and, you know, it will never change. Like, I don't understand why it's such a big deal to take away people's guns when, like, they're talking about mass shootings. I mean,
Well, like Nick just said, more people are killed by hammers
Yeah.
and knives. Way more people are killed by medical malpractice.
We have our priorities wrong. You know, we need to get them
Nobody's
straight.
saying, you know, how many tens of thousands are killed in vehicles every year. We have to ban vehicles.
yeah, like,
We should just
make
ban
us all
everything.
ride bicycles and stuff.
And all these schools that the shootings are happening at, they're already gun-free zones. The criminals are already breaking those laws. I think it's stupid to have these signs on there that says gun-free zones, because that tells all the criminals that want to go on a shooting spree, hey, I'll have a clear area.
I can create the most damage in this place.
Because no one's
Or
going to
more
stop me.
Like, why would I go on a shooting spree at a police department? They'll put me down fast.
Right.
You know?
Like,
Obviously, that's not a sound mind.
It's like, come on
judgment
in,
call,
we're
but-
unarmed.
like, it makes no sense. And I remember right after the Sandy Hook shooting, some people were calling for armed people outside the schools and stuff. I mean, shove them out there. Like a Marine got reprimanded for wearing his I forgot his uniform or whatever outside of school to help people help people feel safe.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And look at it this way: Obama's children get armed guards at their schools, but are our children not good enough for that? Like, I mean,
Oh, you don't want to say that. Then that's just unfair to his kids, right?
yeah, right. Like, I mean,
to point out a double standard, it's unfair to his children.
oh yeah, like, you know, because our children aren't like, I don't want my son. You know, I have a 1.5-year-old son. I don't want him to go to school and not feel safe. You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really dumb that that his children have that luxury of having protection where ours will not.
Yeah.
Well, even let the teacher maybe have a gun and hidden in somewhere.
Let
where
them
they
have
can,
the option to have
Yeah,
a gun.
you know.
They don't have to have
right.
it if they don't
feel
want to.
comfortable with it, they
In
don't have
Israel,
to, but
the teachers have
Right.
weapons to protect correct?
Yeah,
Like
and there were statistics out too that they don't have shootings. Actually, that the shooting rates dropped, and the Israel government came out and said, "No, that's not true. Our terrorist rates dropped." So they call it a different thing. They don't call it like a mass shooter. They just call it a terrorist. And yeah, they still dropped because the teachers are armed to protect the kids.
Like it is terrorism. Like it's like homeland terrorism that our own citizens are terrorizing our citizens. Like that's what you have to call it. You can't call it shootings. You have to call it terrorism.
Yeah, but it's not the same sort of terrorism as what we're dealing with, like a foundation and belief. This is a domestic terrorism that's like mental instability.
Yeah.
You know, and it's induced mental instability.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily like this crazy. They get this crazy after they get put on crazy drugs.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, we're gonna play a couple songs real quick, and we'll be right back here in a minute with more Waking Up, Merica. on KCNT 88.1.